Welcome to As the Story Goes. I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome Piotr, Turek, and Richard Powley from Telepathy to the podcast. The new Telepathy record, Transmission, is out this Friday on Pelagic Records. The guys talk about their musical backgrounds and how the band came together, the dynamics of balancing being family and a band, the prophetic nature and timeliness of Burn Embrace with the COVID pandemic, the process of delivering a theme or vibe with instrumental music, their relationship with Pelagic, and more. This is a wonderful conversation, and Transmissions is an absolutely killer record, so make sure you give the record a spin on Friday. I do not think you'll be disappointed. Thanks so much for listening to As the Story Grows. If you're brand new to the podcast, welcome. I would love it if you subscribe to the podcast on your podcast platform of choice. You can find links in our show notes or at asthestorygrows.com to join our mailing list, to come hang out in our Discord server, or to support the show financially and get early access to every episode over on Patreon. Enjoy today's conversation with Piotr and Richard from Telepathy. Where are you both located? I know like a bunch of the band is Polish. Are you in Poland? Is that your base of operation?
No. Actually, we are all based in UK.
Okay.
We are in Suffolk, three of us, brothers, and Richard is in Essex, Colchester.
Nice. Did you guys go to the UK for music? Did you move there when you were younger, or like?
Yeah, I moved here when I was 17.
Okay.
And it was to study music, basically.
Nice.
But because of work, I had to kind of start working as well. My education got a bit delayed. So basically, by the time Albert was about to go to college, we decided to go together. And that's when we met Richard.
Nice.
And that's when the things began.
Oh, that's rad. That's rad. That's awesome. Richard, did you grow up in like that Suffolk area?
Yeah. I grew up in a little village outside of Colchester called Tiptree. And obviously I met these guys when I went to college about when I was 18, 19.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, reading like the band bio, it's always like, all right, how does an Englishman and three Polish dudes get together to make music? And, you know, school is the most obvious answer, but so it's like, who knows, you know?
It sounds like the beginning of a dad joke.
Yeah.
Three Polish brothers and an Englishman walk into a college.
And out comes a band.
Yeah.
Exactly like your parents expected. Got each of you into music.
Funny, I was thinking about it recently. I can remember myself, embarrassingly enough, dancing, loving to dance to Queen's album.
Okay.
Yeah. I just loved Freddie Mercury when I was a kid, and then I've listened to some of my dad's and mom's tapes of Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Dire Straits. So I think that was the beginning, and then it was actually my older brother Christian who he's 2 years older, and he picked up some CDs. I was way too young then. I was like 5 or something, but he was already 7 and already into what our cousins were listening to. And they were just first Metallica tapes and stuff. And he brought that in, and he fell in love with the idea of playing guitar. And so our mom assigned us both for a guitar. I didn't want to play. And I wanted to, sing or whatever.
Yeah.
And then slowly kind of it formed in my head, just that the idea when I was 12 that I should be in a band, and it never kind of went away.
Yeah, that's cool. Richard, what about you?
My mum is a real music head. She grew up in the 60s, like going to see Jimi Hendrix and the Beach Boys and whoever else at the Royal Albert Hall and stuff like that in London. So whenever we were driving anywhere, like when I was like 5, 6, 7, there was always music on in the car. There was always Simon and Garfunkel or Billy Joel, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think I loved it from then. It was an escape for me. Sit in the car, look out the window and listen to Elton John or whatever she was playing. But I think, weirdly enough, the big thing for me was getting this PlayStation game called Dave Mirra BMX 2.
Okay.
And it had so that I had Ozzy on it doing Paranoid live. It had who else was on it? Rage Against the Machine, a few other bands.
Yeah.
And I remember going to my mum like, "This is the best thing I've ever heard." And she was like, "Oh, that's Black Sabbath." And anyway, I did a school exam with the flu, and she bought me a box set of the first 8 Black Sabbath records. And then I was like, I've got to learn how to play the guitar. And
that's awesome.
now here we are in a band.
That's so awesome. I've heard people talk about the influence of Guitar Hero and like that being a musical gateway. But like, I think if you're slightly older, like for me, it was like Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Those soundtracks were like phenomenal. And like, yeah, I'm sure, Dave Mirra, I'm sure that's the same realm of music where it's just like that video game music and like it's all like skate culture, right?
Yeah. And you had like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4. I remember it had like Agent Orange, the Distillers, and a bunch of cool punk bands on it, and like those old Punkorama compilations you used to get from Epitaph Records. Yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. What was the music scene like for you growing up, especially in Poland? Like, you're probably the first Polish artist I've ever talked to. So, like, was there kind of a music scene, whether it's metal or punk or something that you could like go to locally?
It was mostly punk, ska, and reggae for sure. You know, there wasn't that much happening with metal as such, and so it was really difficult to kind of go for a smaller metal gig. So if there was a metal gig, it would be an American or British band, you know, might be German band at that time. So it changed dramatically. It's totally different right now. But so yeah, we would just mostly, you know, I was lucky to have lots of friends there that loved the same stuff. So it was a group of us, around 30 people. So we would always go for festivals together. But mostly it was punk, ska, and reggae. To be, you know, we love it there. But slowly it kind of there was more and more, I suppose, metal music shaping. And even when I already was in the UK and I came to UK in 2004. Even then, there weren't that many bands. I remember just to kind of share anything with Richard and say, and kind of talk. There wasn't that much, but yeah, so that was one of the reasons why I kind of moved here. You know, I've looked at a way where I can meet people who truly would want to do the same as I do to some extent, and so. Definitely was very different, but it was great when it comes to festivals. Most of the festivals were free at that time, you know, so you know you could really kind of go together with friends and enjoy that. So it didn't really matter to us as long as it was loud. it was good, you know, live music.
That's awesome.
And that was definitely another thing that, you know, seeing live musicians makes you every time be like, yeah, I want to do it.
Yeah,
I want to be there, you know.
Yeah, I always talk about, like, you know, the way the music scene used to be, at least here in America, is like all the shows were small, and it's like the big headliner would come through your town and all the local bands would be on it. And it didn't really matter if they were good or not. It was just the opportunity to play. And if you're 13, you're like, I could fucking do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly the same.
It's great.
It's good stuff.
Yeah. So outside of just at school, how did you guys meet Richard, and what was the kind of genesis moment for we should all play music together?
Richard, you want to start? You want to take that? Because you met Albert first, kind of, you know?
Yeah. I am. We're all in college, and you get separated into different bands and projects. So I I was playing guitar for a really good female singer, and well, it's not my thing at all. I was really into like the Melvins and stuff like that at the time. And I heard these guys, Peter, Albert, and his brother, playing in the practice room, and what they were playing is like right up my street. So I'd sort of be in class, sort of listening to them out of one ear and trying to learn something out of the other ear. But all I was thinking was, I've got to find a way to end up in that band. Like that's exactly what I would want to do. And
I didn't know.
I like secretly plotting. But I ended up doing a school project with Albert, the drummer, and I from what I understand, from what the guys have said, he basically just sort of told them, he was like, well, get this guy to come and play with us.
Nice.
And yeah, we've been together since then. So
yeah, I remember that moment when you know, because I already saw Richard and I thought like, oh, he's really good guitarist, but my kind of thing was like, oh, he's into different music at that time, but only slowly through being in the same classroom, you know, at the beginning we were sitting at the opposite sides of the classrooms. But as we kind of kept discovering that everyone likes, I mean, we all like similar music. I remember playing Deftones, and he's like, oh, that's a great tune. You know, I hear him shouting from the other side of the class, and slowly we, you know, start to talk more. And then when Albert said, yeah, let's get together, I think it was just one practice, and we already did kind of, he just laid down bits on something we already kind of had in place, and it started from then on. So there was no any question asked.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, I don't think the band ever really started. I just think none of us ever did anything else. You know what I mean? We were like, oh yeah, this is it. Yeah. This is what we want to do.
That's awesome. This is kind of a twofold question. One, what's it like to be in a band with your brothers? And then Richard, what's it like to be in a band with all brothers who aren't yours?
Oh boy. Should I start then? What it's like? You know, to be honest, I guess I always plotted this, if I can say that way. So when I moved to UK, because I didn't know anyone here, you know, and I moved to a small town called Braintree, which wasn't that, you know, there wasn't that many things going on. So my idea was like, okay, I'm gonna save some money, gonna buy some gear, and then they're gonna move here, and I'm gonna make them play, you know. And Albert was already playing drums, Christian was playing a bit of bass, and yeah, so that was, I was plotting, to be honest, you know. And what it's like to be on daily basis, you know, I think we shaped a really strong relationship over the years, you know. As brothers, you know, there will always be disagreements, but creatively, I think we all like different things, and yet we just we always find common ground, you know. Yeah, but it's good. I am very, very grateful, even when there is, you know, disagreements. You know, at the end of the day, I feel blessed.
Awesome.
I guess I would. Maybe the question should be like, to those guys, what was it like being in a band with someone who isn't your brother? But no, I mean, I think at this point we've grown up together.
Yeah.
And how to put it? I'm really lucky. Like, I feel as much part of their family as my family now.
Yeah.
You know, like our studios at their house. I know the guys' parents, and they know my mum, and so maybe when we were younger, it was like, it all comes down to just settling into something.
Yeah.
And as we've gotten older, like, there's really not many disagreements.
Yeah.
If it's a, you know, I have to be aware that if there is a disagreement, that's a family disagreement. Do you know what I mean? It's not.
You're like, not my problem.
Yeah, taxi. No, but honestly, we rarely disagree about the music because we know when we're playing something that's great.
That's awesome.
And when you're in like a long working relationship with 3 other people, there's always going to be disagreements, and I don't think whether someone being someone's brother has made any difference to that, because I might have a disagreement about something with Albert or and all those things. They become less important. It's not. I don't. It's so strange, like, to be asked, because it's something that I'm in.
Yeah.
So I don't to think of it. Like those years and all those things. It's really that's all I know now.
Yeah.
So it can be hard to.
We all sit and eat dumplings that my mom makes before we go on a tour. One of the things, one of the big benefits, you get fed and you get blankets, for the bus. That's my mom. So
that's awesome. I have 4 younger brothers, and I always shared music with them and wanted them to be in a band with me. It's I have 4 brothers. This is built-in bandmates, but my one brother got really into house music and DJing, and the rest of them could not have cared, and so I was left all alone.
That's why I think it's so rare, actually. But at the same time, you never know. Things can change, and it could be a great combination as well.
Yeah,
coming from different styles.
Yeah,
and one thing, when I think about it, it's. I grew up. I'm an only child, so I don't have any brothers or sisters.
Yeah.
So I can only think I've gained something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I don't think about it. It's just again, I'm there for the dumplings.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like Harry Potter going to the Weasley's house, right? That's
exactly that.
You're like, this is great. Why do you hate it here?
Not far off. Not far off.
I want to jump ahead to Burn Embrace. Obviously, you couldn't have picked a worse time to release an album, but I'm curious about the creative and thematic process to that record, because you released Burn Embrace basically right as the entire world locks down, in an album that is very thematic in what is happening and what's going to happen for the next year plus. What was that creative process like? And then the utter disappointment of releasing an album to be able to do nothing with it.
It's funny. So you want to go, Rich? Oh.
No, you go.
Sure. No, sure. I'm glad you kind of noticed that, because we laughed at that in a way. But because I don't know why it happened, but there was definitely this concept of overcoming difficult times, kind of let it happen and renew or come back with new fresh energy, I in some way, for me anyway, it helped me to deal with it. So we released the album and it's okay, so nothing is really happening, everything is on stall. So your mind goes somewhere else. But because it kind of itself shaped that concept, wherever we did, that we got to that point, it helped me to feel, well, I can't complain, I brought it on myself, kind of, this is what it is. And now, just have to deal with it. So we all kind of did quite a lot during that time. I was fortunate that I continued working, So my job required me to work every day anyway. So I didn't really feel the lockdown the way other people felt. I felt more maybe lack of people around me. And so that created a space that I had to fill up.
Yeah.
But that's obviously posed. But yeah, where the concept came from, I can't tell you. I think it was our personal things we're going through. I think we're all going through hard times in the band, and it kind of it almost feels like we got to the point that something had to change, and luckily it changed for better. In the well, we think it did. So. But yeah, no, it's funny that it happened. But it happened as well with the previous album, Tempest. I don't know if you know it. We hit the as we released the album, there were some of the biggest natural disasters, and it's pretty much about the guy traveling the world through some of the most devastating, cataclysm, storms, and so on. So it's kind of we should be very careful what we release.
Yeah.
So we went with something more optimistic this time.
That's funny. Richard, do you have anything to add? Or?
No, that's about it. I mean, that record was, I remember, being quite difficult to make. Personally, for me, it was quite difficult to make, and I mean, I think that was literally the week that the UK went into lockdown, and I remember we were scrambling, well, what do we do for the release day? And we ended up sitting on the band's Facebook page, just doing a live premiere of the record and chatting to fans in the comments to it, and then it was you had that tease of, it's only going to be 6 months, so we'll move the tour 6 months time, and then another 6 months time, and then you're thinking, it's not going away anytime soon. And then for me, I did another record with another band during the pandemic, wrote and recorded a record which kept me semi sane, because I worked in hospitality at the time, so that shut down totally. And then there were some personal things that I had to attend to, and coming back writing, it's easier to leave a record in the past when you've not been able to promote it. So it almost felt to me, this is a brand new start for this band now. We don't have to worry about whatever we've done in the past. We don't have to worry about following anything up, because there's been such a chunk of time where we weren't active. That we could get into the best possible place to do this new one. Even with behind the scenes stuff, we could get things in order so that we can put out the best thing we've done. And the overwhelming thing I think from it is just the gratitude we have now for the team we're working with at Pelagic, and Amy, obviously, Amy and Shane in the US. It's oh wow, all that time's passed, and we had a record that really basically disappeared in terms of press or being able to tour on it. And there's still people waiting for a new record. That's crazy. With the attention span that people and myself have now, the fact that there's people waiting for a new record is pretty mind-blowing.
When you guys are writing and recording in general, because you're an instrumental band, I also put out music in the post-rock, post-metal vein, and sometimes you write a riff and you're like, this is a vibe I'm feeling, and that kind of inspires naming conventions. Do you guys come up with a theme that you are looking for when you're naming, or is it just kind of once the music is done, you look at it and go all right, what do we want to say with this album?
Okay, so I think it happens while we in the middle of writing. So let's say we already have few songs in, And that's when we start to think about the concept. And the way we think about the concept, we look back. So we don't really try to come up with a concept as such. We just look, okay, so what happened in the time we are writing it? What does it make us feel like? And it forms from there. Some of the titles don't survive. Most of them are just names of usually combinations of different bands. So we will take, it will like remind us of 3 different artists, and we will combine the names of 3 artists into a nonsense, just to kind of call it something. And then as the time passes, the name might form. And in the transmissions, for example, how it happened, it was, I remember sitting here in this room, Richard on the couch, and we talking about, so what we should call the album. And I think it's something about transmitting. And then Richard said, you know what? As we were driving with Yvonne, and that's Richard's girlfriend, she said, you guys should call it Transmissions. And so he was like, okay, actually, that's really good. But it took a while for everyone to kind of digest and say, like, it actually is a good name.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where it kind of, Richard can correct me, but I think that's when it happened. We both kind of, so few people said it, and it just kind of thought, yeah, so it must be it. But we already knew. Sorry, yeah, go, Rich.
Did that happen before or after you found all those photographs in your old house?
It was after. We already had a YouTube video, like a preview for ourselves, and I think you were playing it probably for Yvonne, and she must have saw the artwork as well, because the artwork kind of looks like some sort of antenna,
yeah.
So yeah, it's that's when it happened, and so. It's a slow process, so we never force it. We like it to feel natural, and we take time to write, so it's never really that forced, and it's actually fun. It's fun coming up with names, and then Christian did quite a lot of writing, and because he's got a head for philosophy, and he really dove much deeper into the concept and come up with something great that we could have also record spoken words, and add even more to the concept. So. Sorry, I hope this answers your question.
Yeah. It ties a bunch of questions together, which is great. This Burn Embrace was very much like a metal record. This record is, I think, way heavier, but it's definitely not like metal in the same vein. What was your writing process and kind of just like a new approach to what is telepathy?
Rich? You start.
Yeah. So I think Burn Embrace, it's definitely more metal.
Yeah.
And the producer we worked with on that record, he's known for Gomez. He's known for doing like real metal bands like Grave Miasma, and he loves Craft and lots of weird black metal and stuff like that. So that was definitely an influence on that record. Like even I remember him saying like, "Oh, that sounds like an Immolation riff," like things like that. And we grew up. I think both me and Pete are probably like tied for the world's 2 biggest Metallica fans.
Okay.
But this new record's much more influenced by, I would say, like film score and like cinematic music, and also like synthesizer music. So anything from like Tangerine Dream to Röyksopp or like some Scandinavian like Fever Ray, The Knife, and a lot of that seeped into this record. And then also we were much more focused on melody this time. Mm-hmm. Whereas before, the Burn Embrace was much more rhythmic album. So it was all about like stopping different rhythms, almost like an old Metallica record, like To Live Is To Die On and Justice For All or something like that. And on this one, we really wanted the music to breathe and so that you could really sit with it and have a picture come in your mind. Yeah. So I think that's been the progression, is just slowly more focusing on melody and leaving time for the music to breathe.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's where that extra heaviness you mentioned comes from. Hopefully it's like a sonic heaviness as well as an emotional one.
Yeah, for sure. Like, as much as I think Burn Embrace is incredible, I mean, when Oath kicks on, when you hit play on the record, it hits you like a freight train. I mean, like, the riff, like the guitars, you're just like, damn. Like, and it's not unrelenting, because there are these breaks that, like, and all the spoken word bits where you're like trying to catch, like, okay, what's being said here. So it's like, it's a really cool record. I mean, I'm a big fan. So.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
that's very kind. You know.
Yeah. How'd you guys end up working with Pelagic for this release?
We played when we were touring for our 2017 record, Tempest. We were right at the end of a tour, and the label we were with at the time rang us up and said, "Can you add an extra show and play at Pelagic Fest in Berlin?" And we were like, "Yeah, no brainer." So we're fans of The Ocean and a few of the other bands that were on Pelagic. And earlier in that tour, we had opened for Rosetta and The Ocean. And then the next day after we opened for them, we played another festival that it ended up, the running order was like Rosetta, us, and then The Ocean. And then the next day after that, we ended up at maybe another festival where it was the three bands again.
Nice.
So they asked us to add a show for their festival at the end of that tour. I don't know if any of us met Robin at the time.
Yeah, I think he was somewhere else, but we definitely met him during that year.
And I know Pelagic, I think they carried like our records on for distribution.
Okay.
And then an old booking agent friend has a friend who's a guitar tech, and we were sitting down because we left our old label, Spark Records. Mm-hmm. And we were sitting down going, well, what are we going to do with this record? We made it all ourselves. And we were just sort of sitting on it going, what should we do? And the only label we wanted to approach, like after having this band meeting, was Pelagic. So a friend put us in touch with Robin, and he was like, yeah, let's do it.
Yes.
And then we were fortunate enough to get the full Pelagic treatment of, all right, what's something cool we can do with the packaging? Mm-hmm. What's something cool we can do with the vinyl? And like, speaking for myself, I'm a massive vinyl nerd, so that's like Christmas.
Yeah, it's funny to join a label that makes you feel even more free. Does that even make sense? Yeah. Makes you feel like you got basically, because you get support to do things you wanted. So we've done everything we wanted to that point, and then they pushed us to even do more, which just great. Very good label.
Yeah, their stuff is always phenomenal. I just wish it was easier to get stateside.
Oh yeah.
I think Indie Merch Store are carrying our record, and there's another. Wow, what's that? 1,000 Arms.
Okay.
It's another label in America that are carrying. I don't know if it's a new thing or if they carry the back catalogue as well.
I'll have to go searching once we're off this call. My wife will be happy I spent all that money.
Robin will be happy on that.
Robin will be happy, yeah. He'll be happy. Album's out March 14th. I went to the website. It didn't look like there were any tour dates announced yet. What's your plan for this year?
Album release show, April the 17th in London. At the Black Heart, and then we're going over to Europe to play in Berlin and play a colossal weekend festival with Aranzi Pazuzu and Chat Pile. Then I think we might be heading over to Europe in August, and then there'll be more tour dates in October.
Awesome. Right.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
But there's some more cool stuff we're doing with the record that might come out in like the third quarter.
Okay.
we're talking to some people about like reinterpreting some of the songs.